Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Manifestation Moments here with Miss G. I am so excited to be here where faith meets focus and purpose meets progress. And I am your host, Gwen Finley, Miss G. That's me. I am the visionary startup and book coach. I am an author, publisher, and your momentum motivator. And today I'm excited about our chat that we have going, coming to you shortly. I'm excited about our our guest that is joining us on today. And so I hope that you're ready. I hope that you are excited with us and that you're going to share this stream and let everyone know that Miss G's Ladies Lounge is live. We are ready for an amazing inspiration and encouragement. And we're ready to hear what our guest has to say on today. Today, we're talking about grieving and growing simultaneously, because even in seasons of loss, there's room for light, healing, and hope. And so this moment is your reminder that growth and grief can coexist, and that your story is not just it's not ending in the midst of grief, but it is still unfolding. So I wish that you would like, tag, share, let everyone know that we're here, we're ready, and we will be right back. Okay, well, we're back, and we're ready for our episode today. As I said, we are talking about grieving and growing simultaneously. And today's episode is deeply personal and profoundly important, but also incredibly necessary. Our topic for today is grieving and growing simultaneously. And so many people are silently carrying pain while still trying to show up for life, purpose, and the people on them. And today's conversation is here to remind you that grief is not a sign of weakness, and growth is not a betrayal of the one you lost. It is, in fact, capable of being a tribute to their legacy. And so my guest knows this truth intimately. She is a certified grief educator, speaker, author, contributor, writer, and she is also known as the Chief Empathy Officer of Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. After the heartbreaking loss of her son in August 2019, she made a courageous decision that grief would shape her but not consume her. And she now empowers others and to honor their loved ones while recovering purpose, resilience, and self love. So, if you ever wondered how to keep living when your heart is hurting or how to embrace joy without letting go of memory, this episode was created with you in mind. So, family, help me welcome my guest as we explore what it truly means to grieve and grow simultaneously. Help me welcome my guest to the show, Miss Lynn. Hi, Miss Lynn Lewis. How are you today?
I'm well, Gwen. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. Got a few little technical issues here, so if it looks like I'm looking over, I see you. I see you. I see you. I'm not. I'm not looking away from you. I'm just working the magic from both sides.
Okay,
So
that is quite okay. That's live TV, right?
exactly, exactly. So, Miss Lynn, your bio is so powerful. And again, I want to say I said this before we even started live, but I want to say I thank you so much for being here. I feel so honored to have you here with me. I was thinking about you. I wore a hat last last week to my book release party, and all I could think about when I bought that hat was Lynn with those hats. You can rock a hat, girl. You can rock a hat. And I said, I
Oh
want one day I
wow.
want to be like Lynn. So I put my little hat on for my book release party, and I
I
thought
saw
about
you in the
you.
hat. I saw that.
I thought about you. I said I might not rock it like she do, but I got it on. I got it on. Um, so we also want to welcome our guest on tonight, joining us. Thank you so much, Pastor Geneva, for joining us on tonight. She's here in the lounge with us, and all of those that are joining us. If you're here, go ahead and give let us know that you're here so we can give you a little shout out. So, Miss Lynn, why don't you start us off by telling us how how you yourself have come to understand our even our subject on tonight. Grieving and still growing. Tell us about your experience.
Well, thank you again for having me. I feel honored to be in Miss G's lounge at last, right?
And
But
that's
and timing is everything. But so how do I came into this space. I'll just say this first. I've been grieving and growing really simultaneously for the past over 6 years. But as I thought back, I was thinking about this today, that really started back in 1977 when my mother died, and I was only 18 years old and just graduated from high school. But of course, back then, we definitely didn't talk about grief, and we somebody passed away, we had the funeral, we had the family get together, and then it was life as normal.
exactly.
And I did not grieve my mother until many years later. I would think about why do I feel a certain way at certain times of the year, or for instance, after I had my son, and someone it was actually a pastor that I had at the time, and we were talking one day, and he kind of explained to me that that was like my unresolved grief. And I'm
Mm,
talking, this was 20 years after she passed, and so really it started back then. But
mm-hmm.
to when I really got on this journey was 6 years ago when my son died unexpectedly.
Mm,
And I just decided early on, I'm just it's too heavy for me to carry, to
right.
keep it to myself and to carry. So I had to figure out a way to continue to live, to continue to grow, with his memory, with his love in my heart. And that's what I've been doing since 2019, really early 2020, when I made the declaration that I love my boy. I probably would have died for him, but I'm
Mm,
not gonna die with him. And so that's really kind of the what started me on the trajectory and the direction that I'm going now.
wow, that is very amazing and powerful right there. I've served as a nurse. I am a nurse by trade, but I've served as a nurse at many funerals. And one of the things that I say to people often is, don't let yourself get sick. They get to crying so hard and just they won't eat, they won't, and they come to the funeral and they go through so much emotion sitting at that funeral that I've seen people literally have to be taken away by ambulance. I've seen people actually pass out, you know and so it's important for us to remember that, like you said, you definitely will miss the individual, but you don't need to die with them. you know, your life here on earth is not your time. And so you still
Right.
have to figure out how you can navigate through the process along with dealing with your grief, because it is important to deal with it, but not to let it overcome you. And
Most
so,
definitely.
yeah, so I appreciate that, what you said. So, in your own journey, you made the powerful decision that grief would not consume you. And what was your defining moment when you realized that while you're doing this, that you can grow at the same time and do some things, that was different than what people thought you probably should be doing at the moment? What did the
Yeah.
first step toward growth look like for you?
Well, the first thing that happened when the first thing happened, I did not really think about it as grieving and growing at the same time.
Right.
That actually just happened. The phrase just came this year, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But when I first made that pivotal decision, made that declaration to myself that I was going to continue to live um, on purpose, with purpose, was just 7 months after Daniel's death. My son's name is Daniel Brooks Lewis, and it would have been his the weekend of his 31st birthday. My husband and I were away, and I was waiting for Keith to finish getting ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was reading like a little devotional or something, just, some quiet time. And I just said, this is going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life. I can't change it, but I can decide how I'm going to navigate it. And I said, I going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life, but I'm not going to allow it to consume me.
Yeah.
And when I said that, I had no idea how that would look, what it would consist of. I didn't know, but I just know in my spirit, I made that declaration. And from that point on, I started like doing some research to figure out, okay, what can I do with it?
Yeah.
What can I do with it? And I came upon grief coaching, and that's kind of where I got into grief coaching, and then further my certifications as a grief educator. But even with that, I once I made that declaration, there were still many days that I thought I was ready to help other people,
Yeah.
but I wasn't. So it took another year for me
Mm.
to actually say, okay, I'm ready to help other people, to tell my story. And so, yeah, it just kind of happened. So officially 1920, so 21, I guess was early 22. So about three good years now that I've been really working it. And
Yeah,
still
that's,
having those days, still having
yeah,
those
yeah.
days. Yeah,
It's progressive. It's progressive.
it's a
And
progressive process.
yeah, and that's okay. My mom passed away in 2008. My brother passed away in 1993. And, little things that you don't think about.
Yeah.
But as things happen, you realize that, as you said, you're still grieving certain things. But I remember my former pastor, one day after my mom had passed, and it wasn't long after she had passed, and I just felt like, what am I going to do now without my mother? Um, I spent a lot of time traveling with her to church conferences and doing a lot of church together. We did a lot
Hmm.
of church together and coordinating events and doing things. And so I really was feeling like I was going to get lost somewhere in there. And he said to me, there's some things you could do. And he started giving me some ideas, which I knew it wasn't for me at the time.
Right.
But it made me think about other options also. And it made me think that there was a purpose and a plan for me beyond my grief. Now, before we even go further into um, some of the topics that we wanted to talk about, I want you to explain grief for us. And does it always only include when someone dies?
Good question. So I usually start with talking about loss, and loss. And to answer your question, no, it's not only about death, but grief is the emotions that we experience, or the reactions that we have as a result of a loss. And so then to dial back to what is a loss. A loss is when we no longer have access to something or someone that we loved and we cared deeply about. And so health, it could be loss of a relationship, it could be loss of a career. I mean, right now in the United States, we're going through a national government shutdown that is adversely affecting a lot of people's lives.
Mhm.
That's something that they can't have right now, so that could be causing grief, those emotions, because grief is just the emotions that's attached to or the result of a loss. um, Loss of expectation.
Mhm.
So yes, anything that we no longer have access to, that we care deeply about or love, that's a loss. And then grief are the emotions that we experience as a result of that loss. And
Mhm.
grieving is what the act of, that's what's going on. Um, so that's how I explain it, and I think it's probably very elementary, but
Yeah, that's
I
good.
like to keep it simple.
Exactly. And that's what people need to realize, because people, we may look at someone and say, well, what's wrong with her?
Hmm.
And maybe they didn't have someone to die. Maybe they didn't experience, going through the sickness and the death and the funeral. Maybe that's not what they experienced. But like you said, I remember I had a job that I really, really thought I was just doing so great at, and I wanted to keep that job. And, when I lost that job, and I did not get fired, but
Hmm.
because I was out on a sick leave that was extended, they gave my job away. And I felt,
Hmm.
it was such a loss to me. And at the time, it was, especially if you got other things going on, that just compounds the whole situation right there. And it was almost as if I was truly grieving. And it took a long time before I actually found another significant job that I could. feel like I was able to move on from what I was doing there to be able to move on to something else because I had also uh, uh, been so productive, I
Mhm.
thought, in that position. So, like you said,
Yeah.
that loss of that, took me back to step one almost.
Right. Yeah, and it was definitely a loss, and you were grieving. Speaking of jobs, there are persons who grieve, persons who retire from a career, from a job, because some people's lives are so wrapped up in the job, in the career, and so when they retire, it's like they've lost their identity.
Right.
I work not rather closely with some organizations involving firefighters.
Mm.
And so first responders, because that is such a close
Right.
knit family, if you will, a brotherhood, sisterhood. So when they retire, when some of them retire or leave for whatever reason, it's like they lose that, and it's really so they've already had a very mentally challenging career, and then be- they don't forget the things that they see and smell and
Mm.
hear on the job, and so now they retire and they don't even have the men and women that they at least used to could talk to, or
Right.
be in the house with, and it's very difficult. A lot of mental and emotional stress, estrangement.
Mm.
For some reason, I'm hearing a lot of estrangement, like parents and children or family members, and that is a grievous situation, particularly, and I wrote an article about this recently, but particularly if one person wants to try to reconcile
Right.
and the other one doesn't. And,
Mm.
we're not judging because we don't know what the situation is, but that is causing grief to the one that wants to reconcile.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's loss is what, those emotions of grief is a result of.
Right. And we just all off topic, but not off topic,
Okay,
but all about
it's so much.
yeah, but I thought about while you were talking even about the firefighters and and first responders, their life has been filled with being there for others and helping
Mhm.
others. And so when you retire, it's almost as if, well, what do I do now? I don't have anybody to
Right,
help. Nobody's going to call me. Nobody needs me,
right.
and so I understand that. I understand that process. Now it almost tried to get me because I retired just a few months ago, but I went back to work within a month or two.
Did you? You
But
sound
not
like my
because I
husband.
was grieving, not because I was grieving. But I will say it wasn't because I was grieving, but I did realize because I was out for surgery prior to that for 2 months, and I did realize that I still needed to kind of be busy. You,
Mhm,
you know what I'm
mhm,
saying? I still
mhm.
needed that interaction somewhere. And I'm one of those people that's always, somebody told me the other day, you always got to be in charge, you always got to be doing something, whatever. That's fine. But I'm not in charge now, but I do have responsibility.
Mhm,
And that's, I
mhm.
think, another thing. Sometimes people want to have responsibility and want somebody to kind of want them and need them for something, and you see a lot of people who don't have that, and they lose, like you said, they lose their identity, they lose their
Right.
will, they lose a lot of things. So, all right, so from your experience, what are some of the mental or emotional barriers that you feel keep people stuck in grief, and how can they begin shifting from survival to intentional living?
I think some of the first one that comes to mind is guilt. um,
Mm,
guilt behind if I move on, that means that I didn't love, that means that I'm trying to forget, that means that I don't didn't care. You see
mm,
that a lot if it's a particularly a spouse or a partner,
yeah, yeah.
and then they are ready to, entertain, whether it's date or get married or even to hang
Mm,
out, with their friends, that they feel guilty for doing that. So that's one thing that keeps people stuck. And then that fear of what are other people going to say about me?
mm. Like they can't enjoy.
And right. And so those are some of the things that keep people stuck, and not feeling fearful to move forward. And what I say to people is you're grieving because you loved somebody, or you loved that job or that career. So, you were really passionate about it. So you're going to feel that way.
Yeah, that's really good. So when you teach others, you teach them how uh, that they can honor their loved ones while rebuilding their lives. Um, what are some meaningful ways that people can carry their loved ones, legacy forward while embracing their own purpose and their own future and, stepping forward? What are some meaningful ways that they can do that?
And so it will depend upon the type of relationship they had with the person, and who the person was. So I'll use my own self to give a couple of examples. So one of the things that my son, even though he was an adult, he was 30 when he died, but he wasn't married, or really didn't have a fiance or girlfriend at the time. So we did things together, and we called them our adventures.
Mm,
And adventure could be going to the bookstore to hang out. Adventure
yeah.
could be going to a tea shop. Those whatever we did, he always would say, "Ma, I enjoyed our adventure together." So I still do adventures. I
Mm,
still do things that we maybe would have done together.
oh,
And I always think about him, and I'll say, whatever, I'll say out aloud, that I missed you today on our adventure or something like that. And then sometimes I'll plan things that I want to do, but it's an adventure that I think he would have enjoyed.
oh,
I talk about him. I do things to honor his memory. Each year, usually around his birthday, which is in March, I usually do something. Like one year, we delivered cookies to the fire stations because he was a firefighter. So fire stations in the area where he worked. One year, we did. I just asked the family and friends who wanted to make a donation to Full Circle Grief Center, where my husband and I we attended the support groups, just to make a donation in his memory, and make it quirky, make it so his birthday is 3/16/89 birthday. So just kind of mix the numbers up, do, $3.16 or 31, something
right.
quirky. Last year, no, this year, I did a brunch in his honor. It's
Mm,
called Just Say Their Name, because another thing a lot of times people get hung up on is people think that if they call our loved one's name, it's going to upset us, or it's going to
mm,
bother us, it's going to make us sad. Well, in actuality, um, they are probably not far from our minds anyway. I mean, how often do you think of your mom and she's been
yeah,
gone for,
mm,
over 10 years?
right.
Um, so it makes me happy when people call his name or talk about him or tell me a story. And I always say, he was my child, so I know he wasn't an angel, but I want to hear all of the stories.
Yeah.
So, call, um, if it was something that they liked, um, for instance, maybe if somebody was into going to the races, uh,
Mhm.
going to seeing the movies when they first came out. You're gonna have
Right.
movie night, just things to just keep doing things that they enjoy doing with them. A lot of times people plant trees. A lot of times people will start um, causes or organizations or nonprofits in their honor. But those are just some of the things that you do, and then just come up with your own. It doesn't have to be anything. You know, one of my friends for several years, her uh, her granny's birthday, she would make the cake that her granny liked. It was something like a pineapple cake or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Make that cake because that was something her
Right,
granny liked. So, it doesn't have to be something that costly or expensive,
right.
whatever you want it to be to help keep their memory alive. My son used to make the pancakes for the family breakfast. I mean, waffles
All
for
right.
family breakfast on Christmas. And he always put a little bit of cinnamon in the batter. So now when we make waffles and pancakes, we put a little bit of cinnamon in the batter. Just
Keep it
things like
alive.
that
Yeah.
that keeps their memory going.
So when does that memory or that those actions become unhealthy, or do they?
Um, and and I'm a coach, not a therapist or counselor.
Absolutely.
So this is my opinion.
Right.
I think they become unhealthy when it's it's something that's the only thing you do. You don't, you know, kind of move forward with it. Like if uh I read recently that, and this was a celebrity, but that somehow she was able to keep her deceased son's body in the house for some weeks, packed on dry ice. To me, that's
Mm,
very unhealthy.
yeah.
So things that, to me, again, I'm not a therapist or a counselor, but when um, when when people they just cannot cannot move.
Yeah.
Um, I suggest that they get some professional help. Now, everybody grieves differently on their own time. Not judging, you should do this, that, or the other in 7 months because that's what it was for me. But and then the other part is unhealthy when you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're doing you're over exercising, you're overeating, you are over shopping, you are spending money on stuff that you don't even want versus paying your bills. Those when things get really unhealthy. And someone may say, well, it's in honor and memory of so and so because they love to shop. But if it's tearing you down or causing something worse, then that's probably not healthy. That's probably not healthy.
And when you say that, it reminds me of a story I shared with my sister that I saw in the news yesterday, and it's a little touchy. But there was an individual. I don't know if anyone read this story, but there was an individual not far from us, but he had lost his father, I believe, in a car accident, and then a few months later, his wife passed away. And it sounded like they had about 4 or 5 kids. And somehow or another, he actually, as they say, unalived his children
Mm,
and put some of them in the car, in the trunk. And they were in there for months.
mm,
And they just happened to, I guess he didn't, do that with all the kids, and there must have been some 1 or 2 other kids that were still around. And then when he did do another child, he called 911 and
Mm,
they came and they found the others that had been there. Now, this was just yesterday in the news, and they had been there since May. And so I was saying to my sister, each time he lost someone, it was like he lost a piece of his mind and he just,
mhm,
and so you have to be careful, that, as we said from the beginning, that grief does not overtake you, in whatever it is, whatever capacity. And I'm definitely not a licensed professional for, mental or any of
right.
these type of situations. But I do know that there is an unhealthy thinking process, and
Mhm,
we have to be careful, even when we allow thoughts to grow and to fester in our minds. We have to be extremely careful. We have to be extremely careful when we become, as you said, when that's all we can think about,
mhm,
it causes us to have more problems
yeah,
than good. So, for those who are listening, who feel guilty about moving forward, and experiencing their joy after loss, or what words of encouragement or truth would you offer to help them see? I know you gave us some examples of things they can do, but just give us, as we wrap this up, just give us a few words, to help them see that this is not betrayal, but it is love. When they
right,
do move.
right. Um, I was thinking about this actually earlier in preparation for something else, but just thinking about asking yourself the questions, the hard questions, um, accepting that your person is not coming back. You'll never have them in the physical form. You'll never have them in the physical form. um, and finding that balance to how you can honor them, their memory, and still live. But a couple of words that I always use, Gwen, and it's choice. It's got to be choice. I could have chosen to just sit, just keep ruminating about why he died. Why did he die the way he did? What did I
Yeah.
miss? Beating myself up with the failure, the guilt, the shame, all of those things. But I chose. So you got to choose to say, you know what? I'm not. They're not coming back. Um, I'm still gonna always have them in my heart, in my mind. But I want to live. And so, but you have to make that choice. And that's what I say to people. You have got to make that choice. And that's the people that I work with specifically is once they made the choice, say, okay, I'm ready to live, but I need a little bit of help. I need a little bit of guidance. So that's where I come in as a coach. Um, but yeah, just you've got to make that choice to accept that they are not coming back and that you want to move forward. Um, and you also have to decide to take good care of yourself because you
Yeah.
not taking care of yourself is not helpful. It's really detrimental to you if you don't take care of yourself holistically. Holistically, I would say if you're feeling guilty, um, decide to talk to a therapist or a coach, or maybe you have a clergy person, maybe you have someone that you trust, a confidant, to talk to them, to talk those things out. Um, those are just a couple of things that I suggest that people do. And then try things, if because sometimes with grief, what is very beneficial this month, 2 months, 6 months down the road, that may not be the answer.
Right.
Talk to your doctor if you have a what do you call a PCP, Talk to your
Yeah.
doctor. They may be able to direct you or help you with some resources. And Gwen, the bottom line too is sometimes when it comes to grief, people just want to be heard. They just want somebody to listen. They just want to know that I'm not being judged for feeling the way that I am. So sometimes it's just a matter of, being they want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be validated. Um, and that will help to get them moving.
And even as you said earlier, some, everybody grieves differently.
Yes.
For some, they want to seclude themselves
Mhm.
for a little while, and that's okay. But sometimes you might need some people to pull you out of that seclusion. And they get angry, they get all, but sometimes it's what's needed. And then some people need to be surrounded, with a lot going on around them. And one of the things that I did, and so I really appreciate this chat altogether, because one of the things that I did in 2008 was I created a women's ministry,
Mhm.
because once my mom passed away, I just felt like there was more for me to do, and I started working with gathering a few friends, and we started building a women's ministry, and here we are. We just celebrated 16 years last year.
Wow.
We celebrated 16 years last year, because and that was my project that helped me to move forward. Even as you said, I didn't tell a lot of people that that's why I did it, but my mom, I had mentioned it to her that it was something I wanted to do, and she said, "Yeah, you
Mhm.
should do something like that." But then I was afraid. But when she passed away, it just became so obvious that that was what I needed. And I tell you, it's been almost the same group of women that have stuck with
Mm.
me through those 16 years. And I believe that they helped me through many of my grieving processes, not
Oh,
just
I'm
that one,
sure.
but they've helped me
Yeah.
through so many, and I know that we've helped each other through many situations and circumstances. So Ms. Lynn, I mean, this has been this. We're gonna have to definitely do do this again, because there's so many things that to tap into when you start speaking about these. Some things that people sometimes don't even want to talk about, and then there's things that people really need to hear that they don't want to hear. But I want to ask you, who do you? I know you said that people come to you when they're at a certain point. So how can individuals actually get in touch with you? And I'm sorry, because as I said, I can't do a lot of technical stuff here. So if you just say it, we'll put it in the chat later. But just
Okay,
let
no
everybody know
problem.
how they can
So
kind of.
one way to get in touch with me is through my website, and that's Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. Destined to Thrive Grief Coaching. That's my website. There is also the email address, which is destined to thrive at outlook.com. And you can find me on Facebook under my name, Lynn Lewis. You can find me on Facebook at Destined to Thrive. And I am on Instagram as Grief Coach Lynn. And I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Lynn Lewis. So any of those places, you can find me. You can contact Miss Gwen. She knows how to reach me. We in some of the same circles,
Hopefully, I'll see
and
you next
so
week.
yes, yes, yes. So, but yes, so that's how someone can reach me, and I do complimentary chats so that we can figure out, if we're a good fit for each other. I often say I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I will help you find your flavor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Miss Lynn, I know that we also said that you are an author. So tell us about some
Yes.
of the amazing things that you've already done and if you have anything special coming up.
Yeah, I have a brand new book that's really just hot off the press. It's a
Ooh,
anthology, my second, my actually my third anthology for the year,
okay.
called Prioritize Your Potential.
Ah,
So this one is hot off the press.
off the press.
And then previously, I published a journal, um, my suicide journey journal and memory book. And then I have She Blooms is an anthology, but that's a ebook anthology. So if you go to my website, you'll find those particular books. And again, you can just email me if you want more information. I'll readily share with you.
Awesome, awesome. Anything coming up that you're hosting or anything? Because I know did you recently have something not that long
Um,
ago?
yeah, well, I haven't actually put it out yet,
Okay.
but on
You'd
Friday,
like to be the
November.
first to know.
Yes. Oh, yeah. November, is it the 14th? Yes. No, Friday, November 14th, I'm doing a virtual um, author showcase. So I'll be showcasing all of the writings, the books and the magazines that I've written for. So that'll be
That
popping
is
up.
awesome.
Hopefully this weekend I'll have the information publicized with it'll be virtual, but with the links, and it'll be free as well. So excited about that. We're gonna do it like a pajama party on a Friday night.
Hey, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I've had a pajama party in mine, and I asked some ladies if I did a pajama party, would you come? So, yeah. So but I understand you're doing a virtual pajama party. I'm doing a in person eventually one day. But
Me too. I've always wanted to have an adult pajama party, but this one is going to be virtual. But that's coming. That's coming. So that's I think that's all I have. Things are slowing down a little bit, a little bit right now. I
it's
have
the
some
end of
writing
the
to get
year.
done.
Yeah, it's the end of the year, and now's the time for people to kind of pull in all that they've gathered throughout the year and review some things and then
Mhm.
make some decisions. And so it's good to have something like what you're doing. That's awesome, and I applaud you for everything that you're doing. I applaud you for this great information that you shared with us on tonight. And I will, as I said, put all that information in the chat shortly after we close out this show. And I thank you once again for finally meeting us here in the lounge, but it won't be your last time. We like repeat customers, we
Thank
like
you.
repeat
Thank you.
friends. So we thank you again. And I pray that everything that you put your hand to will grow and prosper.
Thank you. Thank you. To
You're
God be the
welcome.
glory.
Amen. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all for joining us on today, and we are just so excited about everything that's happening. Listen, I've got a little surprise for our next show. So I want you to make sure that you join me. The time is probably going to be a little bit different. I think we're going to be doing an early show on next Thursday. I got a little surprise for you, so make sure you're here. You don't want to miss this. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Coach Yolanda has joined us also, and hopefully we'll see you also next week. Amen. Amen. So yes, we are going to be here in Miss G's Ladies Lounge next Thursday, and I believe the time will be 6:30 p.m. So make sure that you join us for a special live show next Thursday, and then on Friday Many of you that are already registered, I think the registration has closed, but we're going to be hanging out with Charvette Mitchell at the Platform Builders Summit. Yeah. I know you're going to be there, cuz. We're going to be cousins, going to be hanging out, and we're going to have some good time. But there are a lot of beautiful business women who are going to be there. We are going to empowering, getting empowered, but also sewing into each other and sharing with one another as we network. Networking is very important. This is also another way that you can start that move, even to get out of some of these grieving processes that you have and get yourself growing. All right, so make sure to meet us back here on next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. All right, live, all the way live, and we'll see you on next week. Have a great night.